Good evening, and welcome to Lower Frederick Township Board of Supervisors work session for May 27th of 2025. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. All the members of the board are in attendance. Marla Hexter is on Zoom this evening. Staff is present. Jason Wager, Peter Nelson. Carol Schuler is not present this evening, and Chief of Police Brian Cass. Township meetings are recorded for the purpose of preparing the minutes, and the recording is destroyed after the minutes are approved. The meeting will be posted online on the Township YouTube channel. The link can be found on the Board of Supervisors page on the Township website. It is requested that all persons wishing to speak before the board shall state their name, address, and the subject matter upon which they wish to speak for the record. In the interest of facilitating the business of the board, all persons addressing the board shall be limited to 3 minutes unless such time is extended by the chair for good cause. Individuals are requested to remain in their seats and to respect when other persons are speaking. The Board of Supervisors will provide a reasonable opportunity for citizens to comment on any non-agenda items after all agenda items have been addressed, but prior to the adjournment of the public meeting. So this evening, the first item on our agenda is the Public Works 2025 projects discussion.
Okay, so as part of the mowing RFP discussions, one of the things was if the board moved forward with the third-party mowing, what kind of available funds would the Public Works have to do projects? So what I'd present first is the available funds. So current additional costs. So for third-party mowing, if they do every week through the end of October, based on the agreement, that would be a total of $47,916.59. If they did just the priority A's weekly and priority B bi-weekly, that would be a total of $45,949.37. So that's how the third-party mowing shakes out for this year, even though we understood that we did not have that budgeted in our current budget. Under roads and bridges, the contractors, the actual is $42,416. We only budgeted $31,500. This was the road work done prior to the 2025 oil and chip project and the 2025 street sweeping. So as far as available funds, the labor budget funds available by not hiring a public works employee in June was $57,931. This would include the salary and all benefits. Other available funds for public works projects. So for the 438,200 roads and bridges contractors, starts out at a negative $10,916. For the materials, we've only spent $800, so we have $30,696.82 available. And contracted services, we have $5,250 available. So total available as of the 25th of May for road work, $25,030.82. That's not including the difference between the mowing and the labor for not hiring an employee. The only other available item under the general fund would be the 432 ice and snow removal, which is budgeted, which has a budget of $9,768. This is for part-time snow removal help and supplies, which is primarily for around the buildings. So what I provided you was the project lists that Tommy provided me. In discussions with him, their top priority projects for this year would be inlet repair and replacements, the Simmons Road Bridge repair, and the Foy Park mulch replacement. So as far as the inlet replacements or repair replacements, estimating costs at $1,400 per inlet. For 10 inlets, that'd be $14,000. There would be additional material costs, but it'd be hard to, this is gonna be hard to determine until the work is started. So I added an additional $3,000 for that. The inlet locations are listed: Overlook Drive, Wilson Drive, Williams Circle, Mine Hill Road and Beth Ann Drive, Boulder and Crystal Drives, Burger Road and Grimley Cul-de-sac between Lorene and Hollow Bush Road. That total estimated work would be $17,000. The Simmons Road Bridge repair is being estimated at $9,449.48. So a total estimated for projects would be $26,449.48. The Foy Park mulch replacement would be funded out of our ARPA COVID relief funds, so that didn't go into this equation. There are some smaller projects that they could potentially do depending on time/funds available. So the only thing that was not listed as part of this summary would be rental of a compact excavator, which basically the choice the board ultimately would make is whether or not we want to have it per month or daily or weekly, which is at a much more expensive rate. And I'm assuming the excavators are needed for the inlet work, or would. So that monthly rate would be $2,895 per month. Which could be offset by the available budget balance that we have under the labor between the mowing and the not hiring an employee. And then they would look to rent that excavator for 2 months, maybe up to. Yes.
That's for the inlet work.
That would be for the inlet work. They would also utilize that for the mulch. I don't think it's needed for the bridge because most of that bridge work is going to be underneath. The only other alternative we would have the excavator would be to use the equipment bid, much like we did with the when the guys did the manhole risers or manhole replacement here out on Main Street when the sidewalk was getting worked out.
So the budget line, roads and bridges contractors, if I'm reading this correctly, we budgeted for 31,500, and already this year we've spent 42.4.
Yes.
So we're over $10,900.
Yes.
And do we plan to use more contractors for these things we talked about?
Not for these projects.
Okay. Did we do anything that wasn't planned, or was it just a miss?
The prep, the pre-work done before the oil and chip, that's where the bulk of that came from. And then the yearly sweeping that we do.
Okay. What's the difference between the contractors line and the contracted services line? Like falls into what buckets?
The contractors line, and this is something that the township had, it's had broken down in the budget. That seems to be more the roads and material. It's more road related. I'm assuming the contractors is for, I call it miscellaneous contract work that they may need that might not be road specific.
But nothing that you have in blue, everything in blue is already on a list of things to do this year. We're just prioritizing them.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know the initial was, what was the mowing actually going to look to cost us, depending on how that, and then also, you know, that was kind of the main number, I think, to pull. And then also, what was that number if we pulled out, not hiring? So, I know those were two of the key numbers, I think, for you guys to take a look at as far as this year's budget.
Right, and again, yeah, that makes sense. So from everything, moving it around, it's about, if I'm reading it right, we're about break even with just moving the things around.
Yes.
It's not okay.
And that's not taking into account, like, any of the other line items in the O and M, just kind of,
Right.
like,
So like Terry said, we're breaking even here because the third-party mowing, excuse me, mowing wasn't actually an additional cost. We had accounted for that. It was in lieu of
the labor, yes.
the labor.
Yep.
Plus the equipment that wasn't going to get purchased. So with the overage on roads and bridges, we're saving 10,000, not hiring someone. So like Terry said, we're kind of breaking even here. I did notice there's 4 inlets you wanted to work on. Or how many inlets are
10.
there?
10 total. And obviously with inlets, this would be the kind of thing, could easily get split up.
So on the last project list, there were 27 inlets that were going to be worked on. And that came out to a total, I believe, of $36,900. When you average it out, it's $1,370 for each inlet. And here we have 10 inlets at $17,000, and they're going to be $1,700 each on average. So when you did when we were doing the budget, were these figures, these financial figures available to consider for these projects? Or do we just have a line item baked in there and now we're trying to work with what we have?
Yes,
Okay.
your last statement. It's kind of like anything, as we get the quotes, now we can shore up some of these numbers when it comes to budgeting properly.
So where we're at now is you're saying we only have $25,000 to work with to complete the projects that are a priority on the list.
The 25 plus the, like, almost 10 out of, if we needed to use that. Looking at their overall general fund budget.
I'm pretty sure that the Simmons Road Bridge, was that on the 2023 road survey as well? I think it was.
I believe it is, yes.
Did we have a cost at the time on what we thought it might cost that?
I believe that estimate, I don't believe we had an estimate. I believe if we were to do it, we were trying to look at the low-volume dirt and gravel program, and to utilize that funding, we would have to do that project in a different way that was going to make that cost
Much more.
exorbitant. Okay. Whereas this way, our guys would do the work, and we would be covering it with our funding. I mean, out of the two different projects, I'd say the Simmons Road Bridge would be the one certainly we need to get done this year, because the longer that doesn't get fixed, it's
So is this number for the entire rest of the year? This 25,000, or is it?
yeah, just as far as kind of breaking out. We did not anticipate the amount for the prep work for the oil and chip. That would have been something that was not known when we did this year's budget.
So you want us to figure out where the money's going to come from to do these priority projects then?
No, what I'm saying is the available money's there if the board so choose, for the Public Works to move forward with these projects. I'll say the bottom line budget number is.
Hi, this is Marla. I have a couple questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So the number for roads and bridges of 42,416, does that include the work that was done on Spring Mount Road by St. Mary's Church?
That was a last year, that project was last year, and those funds came out of ARPA.
Okay, great. That answers that question. All right. And for the inlets, are these 10 inlets? These are the priority inlets you want to get done this year. So my assumption is that the rest of them would be done next year or the year after, kind of split them up into groups. Is that the plan?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so, I mean, my opinion is that, we can keep kicking the can down the road, but these are not getting any cheaper. And roads, what's the proverbial, don't wait till the bridge falls down before you fix it. I mean, these are things that have been neglected for quite a while. And if we have the money, let's do it. Because prices are not going down.
I don't suppose liquid fuels could have been used for any of this.
Nah, they have different criteria for what they'll authorize liquid fuels. So I did ask for the prep work,
So
and we would have had to.
Was the prep work before the chip and seal, could that have fallen under liquid fuels?
I posed the question when I saw what the total was, and I kind of had that, oh shucks. So I don't know if they would have approved it or not. Carol did inquire with our district rep. So I'm not sure if they would have approved it or not.
Well, it's kind of part of the road work, isn't it? I mean, I would imagine.
It is our problem. Part of the problem was we were committed to do it, and we didn't get that. We didn't get that in. We didn't get that project submitted to PennDOT.
So with liquid fuels, we put into them and have them approve the projects that we're going to do?
Generally, yes. Like, so if we know what those, so a few years ago, I think in 2022, there was shoulder work and other work done on roads. That was done out at liquid fuels. We need those pre-approvals.
So how much is in our liquid fuels right now?
I don't
Minus
have,
the chip and seal, you don't have that off the top of your head?
No.
I didn't think, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, currently 613,875. Thanks, Chuck.
Is it too late to ask?
Yes. I mean, I can ask it, but generally, you've got to get those pre-approvals before you do the work.
I understand that what Supervisor Hexter said, that these things need to be done. I guess my concern is that now they don't have any more money to work with for the rest of the year.
Also, with these priority projects, I know when we were talking through the mowing contract too, we made sure we asked if you don't have to go mow every day or once a week, is this going to fill you up? So these priority projects, will that keep them busy for the rest of the year, or are we going to talk about this again, late summer and say we need more materials to do another project?
The inlet work would be probably 1 to 2 months. The bridge work, that's kind of, yeah, so that's 2 to 3 months worth of summer work.
Okay.
I mean, they're going to still have, they'll still have swale cleaning, that kind of, the stuff that's non-mowing also, but.
So I imagine, well, I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Terry?
No, I was just going to say, if everything can keep it going, keep the list going, and 2026 budget season is right around the corner. In the meantime, you're going to have a lot of accounting to work these out, to move the lines and make sure that you can. you're not asking for anything here. It was more
Nope.
informing of a decisions.
Just a clarification on the number that you had there, which is roughly 26,500 rounding for all the projects, right? But that doesn't include the rental that we talked about.
No, that doesn't.
Yeah, all right.
We'd have to add the
Gotta
additional.
add another $5,600 to that. Again, I'm rounding.
So I'm imagining your the comments here, that third-party mowing. I'm thinking what you're suggesting is to remove 9 of the B priority mows from our third party, thereby getting us another $2,000.
Yeah, so the way we set it up, we had priority A and priority B. The priority As get done weekly, the Bs and of course, this is also dependent on if we hit drought, so that first number I gave would be paying for every site every week through the end of October. And the priority Bs, if we don't do it, it's like 218 a month or a week, so it's.
Does anybody have anything to add? Terry, do you have anything to add? Marla?
Yeah, I guess I just want to say again that the things on this list are things that should have been done probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, some of them. And I'm just concerned. I mean, we've seen the prices go up. I know this is tough, but if we delay some of this stuff that needs to be done, it's just going to get more expensive. It'll be even harder to find the money. So I think Jason did a good job of showing us we can pay for it. We don't know what the future will hold. I mean, Terry, you're right. We don't know what the rest of the year will be, but we know what these things are. And I just think we have to deal with these issues. They're not new. And I do agree, we could cut down on some of the mowing of the bee to save some money. I mean, if we have a drought in the summer, we'll save more money because there won't be mowing. We've had droughts the last, 2, 3 years in the summer.
So you're looking for a decision tonight?
It doesn't need to be.
The ice and snow removal, is the 9768 all told with the part-time, or was there? I thought
That's all total with the part-time. I think the part-time's like 3,000.
It's 3, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to know, okay.
I threw that in there as just what I would foresee as something that very possibly could be available to us.
I mean, for what it's worth, I'm all right moving forward with what you've asked for. But if people want to think about it another week, the group can decide that, I guess.
I am also ready to move ahead. I don't think we'll have any new information in a week.
No. I do concur with Supervisor Byrd that we should be looking at these projects and getting numbers on them now to budget for next year. It looks like we can probably scrape some stuff together, another 20 grand somewhere here between the part-time, ice and snow removal, the contract services. The materials is the materials.
Yeah.
We can't, yeah. Yeah,
I think move on, and if they get ahead of schedule on something, then come back and we may have to use contracted services or whatever, but for now, what you provided makes sense.
not a whole lot of room for overage, but I guess we can
No.
cross that bridge when we get to it.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, we don't have a lot of fluff built into the budget. I mean, those two line items with the 31,005, I mean, that was, we budgeted, or the plan was that would be for the road stuff. Like I said, we've got to do a little better at what we may expect for the prep work and take that into account. It's not just straight oil and chipping.
And we should always be, I think, adding a contingency.
Yep.
At least 10 to 15% for every single project we do, just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Noel, I think that's a really good suggestion. I think we've seen lately that it's hard to keep things in budget.
And it's not unusual, actually. So it just kind of makes sense to, account for that contingency. I mean, even things that we get grants for, we have overage, so. I'm not quite sure how to make this motion.
It doesn't, honestly, a consensus is fine.
A consensus is
It's in
fine?
the budget. You guys really aren't
Okay.
choosing to spend, I mean,
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Right. About it.
Mr. Byrd? Okay.
Right.
So consensus is, everyone's given a heads up to that.
all right.
We'll move forward. Okay, next item on our agenda this evening, Township Code, Open Burning Ordinance Draft Discussion.
Okay, so I know this is something that the board got today, but I was hoping to be able to go through it and at least kind of get the draft, get how we kind of, what the methodology was to the draft that you guys are looking at now, as opposed to just kind of tabling it for you guys to have time to look at the ordinance further. So this was, is that okay? I guess,
I'm sorry. what
is
was
that okay for me to proceed, or?
Carry
okay.
on, yeah.
I didn't want to be presumptuous. So this was discussed initially at the July 2024 work session. At the time, I was directed to include our Fire Marshal, Tom Gammon, the 4th, along with looking at the Schwenksville Borough Ordinance. On March 4th or 5th of this year, I did have that meeting with Tom and Chief Cass, who's been the enforcer of him, and Chief in the department has been the enforcer of our burning ordinance, to discuss our current open burning ordinance and how we might update our ordinance to make this more clear and concise. Tom brought example ordinances from Schwenksville, Upper Providence, and Exeter Townships, along with a summary of PADP of open burning model. We went through the drafts and came up with the language we thought made the most sense. We also decided to start from scratch. So the draft ordinance that you're looking at currently is for Article 1. It's broken into 2 articles currently with the code. The other one is the, I think it's the wood burning furnace section. So this is only the Article 1. Sorry, wood fired boils. I did have this here. We also, as the board may recall, received recommendations from EAC. So what we looked at as far as trying to make this easier to enforce, but also make it easier for residents to know what you can and can't do in regards to open burning. So for the draft ordinance, we tried to create clear definitions, adding simple, specific definitions.
Is it
sorry.
possible to share the document on the screen?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So with the definitions, we chose to add simple, specific definitions, i.e. kind of what counts as yard waste, recreational fires, burn bans, prohibited materials. Our current code, it has fewer definitions, which can make things a little harder to understand or enforce. So that's really where the definitions here. In section 50-2. Also, once again, defining what is open or like recreational burning. That's been one of the discussions we've had with residents as far as what, where our current ordinance fits requiring a permit, which actually Tom had, based on where, if you just have a campfire, you would need technically a burning permit, the way he read our current ordinance. So for section 50-3, we created permitted open burning. With the draft ordinance, we make recreational fires are allowed without a permit if done safely. And once again, recreational burning, we're saying, is small outdoor fire for cooking, warmth, or ceremonial purposes using clean, dry, natural wood or charcoal in a manufactured freestanding fire pit / ring or outside stove not exceeding 3 feet in diameter, which burning meets criteria set forth in section 50-3.a of this chapter. So we define what recreational fires are, and in the section 3, saying you do not need a permit when it's done safely. Yard waste fires would need a permit and must follow the size, time, and location rules that we have listed in the ordinance under burning of yard waste. Our current code mentions general rules for burning, but lacks really detailed guidelines. So in this section here, where it talks about burning is permitted, things for the board to consider is, do you want to have any days where you can't burn, or holidays, so that would be something for the board to consider. So the way our current permit says is you can only burn on Saturday and Sundays, but our current ordinance doesn't back that up. So when I've had residents question about burning on the weekdays, I can't say you can, because the code doesn't support that. You don't necessarily need to prohibit any certain days of the week. And from what I'm told and from what Tom filled in, they went with the Saturdays and the Sundays on the permit because that's generally when they had more availability for the fire company. But that's not, I'm told that's not necessarily the case now when it comes to this.
Can I ask a question about burning of yard waste?
Mhm.
So let's say poison ivy is considered yard waste. I wouldn't want anybody burning that, right? So I mean, is this a separate thing? I mean, should we just not allow certain things?
So I look at this from the enforcer's standpoint, who's sitting over there, and, it could be, no, I mean, but you're putting a lot of burden on that person to say, well, is that poison ivy in that fire pit, or, I think that's gonna be problematic. That's my opinion.
Well, I agree with you. If we at least put it in there, maybe we'll reduce, since they have to get a permit and it says it there. I'm just thinking the more that we can do to avoid unintended consequences, the better. I agree about the enforcement, but at least we can put it out there and hope people do the right thing, or at least think about it.
So with the draft definition of yard waste, it's organic materials such as leaves, brush, grass clippings, tree limbs under 6 inches in diameter, garden debris, and similar natural waste generated on the premises, I guess. So poison, I guess you could have ivy, oak, other things, I guess. I don't know how.
Don't take me wrong. I happened to drive by somebody who was burning poison ivy on a warm day and happened to be at a stoplight, and it was serious business. My whole body just blew up. I had to go to the doctor. They were worried about me, what I might have inhaled. I had to get on medications and couldn't wear a shirt for a whole month because this whole arm, which was near the open window, was all
one big thing, and anything I put on there would just, whatever ooze would just stick to the shirt. So it was not good. But I'm just fearful the enforcement is a problem, but.
Could it just be listed as a suggestion?
So we do have in here, in the draft, it must not create a nuisance, excessive smoke, or endanger life or property. So I guess, what is it, if it's excessive in the smoke, that would be something that could make that prohibited. Yeah, I mean,
Or maybe you could add after that sentence, this would include items like, and include a couple examples. So when people read that, again, you can't stop them from doing it, but if we can let them think about it, I think that's a good thing.
Can I ask a question about the recreational burning? We kind of went through it. So it says that you burn in a manufactured freestanding fire pit / ring or outside stove not exceeding 3 feet in diameter. Does a makeshift cinder block structure constitute a manufactured? It's a pretty common thing to do.
it is, and currently, no.
So I think you might want to
Okay.
think that.
I use a split boulder in my backyard.
Okay. So basically, I want to add to the recreational burning, add essentially like a natural stone or,
Contained.
Can I add one point to that? I know on some of the calls that we've had, when the fire marshal has come out, a lot of people are digging out where it's dirt, a little bit of sand, and then they're actually using cinder block or some kind of fabricated building material. And we've come to a decision that we've had multiple times, that as long as it has that perimeter, we have been allowing that under the recreational.
And you're comfortable with that?
Yes, absolutely.
masonry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll find language that fits what you guys are suggesting. Okay. It's,
Would you like to make a comment or a question? Feel free.
Thanks for considering this and doing all the work for this.
Name and address.
Diane Durant, Zieglerville Road.
Thank you.
And when the EAC talked your definition about yard waste, when it includes leaves, we are very close to 5,000 residents. And I know it won't happen till 2030 when we do the census, but we'll probably be over 5,000. And DEP in the state says no burning of leaves at that point. So I don't know if you want to tweak that definition, or if Peter has something to say about that. So
I think it would be worth mentioning some of the things that didn't get read, that after your meeting, Tom expressed a few concerns for us to consider as we go through this. It was a comment made to the recycling point that the EAC had made. And he mentions air basins. No persons may permit the open burning of material in an air basin. We are located in Southeast PA Air Basin, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties. Pennsylvania's DEP does not permit open burning or barrel burn of trash or yard waste. This should be looked into, as it might include leaves, twigs, etc. So that might be worth mentioning here. Not only the air basin, but I have a question about, how do we know when there is a PA DEP designated air quality action day? I mean, before we put it in here, we might want to find out how that, actually
sounds good.
comes about.
There's a DEP website, you can look it up on.
Okay. So some way to get like notifications from them about that? So like,
I don't know, I looked at the website today, right now there are no burn bans or
right.
other things in the, across the state.
It makes me wonder under what conditions that they would actually issue an air quality action day, or is that stuff that maybe the
I
regular
think we-
news is
I
actually
think we
putting out there?
saw them last year with
Right.
Canadian.
Yeah.
With the Canadian wildfires, yeah.
Yeah.
So these are extreme events? Okay.
And that information does get around. I mean, I think that's within the burn ban and why the state and county, or usually for us, it's the county level.
And then I would imagine that between Tom and enforcement, I mean, you guys would know.
I have no idea about DEP burn basins, but I do know that when it was that bad,
Right.
the county got involved. And
It,
again,
it trickles down at some point. It's not
Yes,
something we
yes,
have to worry about.
absolutely it does.
Okay, all right. I was just curious.
Yeah, because some of that, yes, that information does get around. It is out there, and
All right.
we get stuff from the county. I do.
Are there any other points that you wanted to hit on in here before we go back and plug in some info?
Oh, as far as going through the ordinance, or?
Yeah, is there anything that maybe,
Sorry, this is Marla again. I've got a question about the 15 feet from the building. Are we going to be able to do that in the two townhouse communities? Maybe this is,
yeah, I would
that's
bet
going to be tough, I think.
15 foot, then they can't have a,
Yeah, I just wonder if, I mean, how do we want to address that, since we know that probably for townhouses, that means nobody can do it. Maybe a corner unit, but I don't know if we need to put something specific in our ordinance or just, I'm,
I
because
don't,
I've had people ask me that, and I've seen occasionally someone having a fire pit who has a townhouse, and I'm assuming that that probably would be in violation.
what about like a chimney on the back deck? I mean, it's, I don't know if there's anybody over there doing like a mini bonfire.
For all the fire calls or burn complaints we've had in the townhomes, they've always been off from the back of the house. We haven't had an issue.
You haven't had any problems?
And a couple times, we've had people that have had chimneys, but they've asked, they haven't been active, and we've told them, take them off the deck, put it in the backyard.
Yeah, I don't think we need to put anything else in there other than that.
Okay, thanks, Chief. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
I guess,
Well, I guess you could do the prohibited burning.
yeah, okay. I guess, yeah, let me finish, the other or, Jesus, I got all thrown off here.
Diane, yeah,
I just have a question. When you, Diane, Zingerville Road, when you say yard waste must be in small piles, does that mean anywhere in the yard? Or should people be, again, burning things within some type of constrained rock circle or something? Are we just burning our piles of branches and things anywhere on our yard?
So the way it's in the draft, it's, if you don't have, if it's not in a structure, you're 50 feet from any building or structure. So we're not requiring them to, and there is a size, there is size restrictions, but we're not requiring them to make a pit or a makeshift pit for that.
Well, probably, and the fire chief was okay with that, that's helping with this. Because I think some of our field fires, the cause of it was that things were being burned, not in a area that was for burning, that was structurally for burning. But I don't know. I don't know how many people in our township just make piles of things, even if they're 50 feet away, and just burn them right there. It seems like a safer thing to do, to burn in a designated place on your property and not, a place that hasn't been cleared appropriately for that. That was my input. Thank you.
I mean, based on my observations over the years, we had neighbors who make small piles and set them on fire in the fall, leaves. And then we have other properties that are larger farms, and they have brush piles that accumulate over a period of time, and they set them on fire when they feel the conditions are amenable. That seems to be a pretty common thing. I don't live in a very, densely populated portion of the town, yet I see it going on, so I'm assuming that I'm not an anomaly.
No, I mean, part of the reason that these brush fires, well, A, they were being burned during burn ban. B, they weren't being attended. I believe one of the main, and Chief could speak to this better than I can, is they're not attended. Or they don't have the proper, they don't have a water hose, fire extinguisher, like, it's really generally when things are, go ahead, Chief.
The major offenses are the people that just throw a pile that's in an area that's not prepared. That's where that's where a lot of the problems were. A lot of the problems are burning during burn ban. The people that consistently come in, get the permits, follow the rules, they have areas pre-staged on their property, and they're doing everything right.
I don't see the point in over-regulating something when majority of the people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. You can't help
And
when
the
people do
people
dumb
that
things.
are doing it the wrong, I mean,
Yeah.
when we get calls, usually the fire marshal comes out or the fire department. Like I know we've had a couple times on Old Gravel where somebody was huge violation and almost.
There were two instances on Delphi, weren't there? Like kind of in the same area,
One was,
like off of Old Gravel?
yeah, one, Old Gravel turned out to be could have been a pretty big problem.
Yeah.
But that was also during the burn ban.
Was that in a unfortunate location?
That was a very dry place that the resident, I don't think, understood
Okay, thank you.
the overall situation of what could have been.
Right.
And there is a section with the AHJ, which is,
I was just going to ask, what is that?
that is the authority having jurisdiction, which would be fire marshal, chief of police, police officer, code enforcement officer, or officer of the Lower Frederick Township Volunteer Fire Department.
Oh,
So-
there is a definition for it.
So that would be, so they would have, so with the open burning, when smoke or and/or ash emission are or may be objectionable, offensive, or seems like a legal term, deleted. Right here.
Deleterious.
To human or animal health or permeate or crosses neighboring properties and/or falls on buildings, vehicles, and vegetation. So to the excessive smoke, that would be something that could get enforced if it's, I realize that still adds that element of perspective, but or obviously when extreme dry conditions, drought, or high winds warrant a ban on all burning. So that's kind of,
This is Marla again. I guess this may be for the chief. Do you ever see repeat offenders? That is when someone makes a mistake and it's pointed out to them. You're seeing any repeat offenders? I mean, do we need to make stronger penalties, or do people understand when they're not burning appropriately and they do better next time?
Marlo, the repeat offenders are cited accordingly, and every repeat
Okay.
offender that we've had has ended up paying fines through district court.
And do you think that is deterring them from repeating the behavior?
Some understand and some have a complex that they're going to do what they want, and that's fine, and we will continue to enforce accordingly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I would say, it's my opinion, we do have a lot of responsible residents.
I would concur with that. So there's this one section here, the burning of yard waste, and you had mentioned something about burning is permitted between blank and blank.
Yes.
Burning is prohibited on blank. Does anybody have anything to add to this? Anybody want to make a suggestion?
So the.
Or
so-
none at all?
So part of that's time of day, like sometimes you'll see sunrise to sunset, or it may be
Dawn to
8
dusk.
AM, dawn to dusk, or
Right.
like 8 AM to 6 P. So that's the between. And then, once again, if the board would want to consider having any days or holidays where you would prohibit burning outright.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head unless someone,
Is there anything in here that, what we did have is, the person had to call county to let them know they're starting it? And they used to have to call back in the evening and tell them it's out.
Oh,
Now, that was in, because I done it many a time.
It's on our permit that they have to do.
it's on the permit.
It's on the permit, but I think it's a
It's not
good
in the
idea.
code?
We'll put it in the code too.
Okay. All right, so that's an easy add.
thank you.
We can just throw a thought here. Maybe for people who have larger properties, do we want to have a separate category of fires that are permissible? I mean, we have friends who live on a farm and we have a bonfire when it gets cold and enjoy the warmth of the fire over during the evening hours. It would be nice if it was done right, that would be legal and not illegal under the code, but that's just my personal feeling.
Okay.
I don't know how everybody else, that's just me.
I tend to agree. I know we live in the nether regions, and some people want to have a bigger fire if they have the space for it.
Yeah, I wanted to return to an earlier question about burning is permitted. I think it's fair to have it between dawn and dusk, except if you're talking about burning a bonfire in the fall, that's after sundown. So it's just tougher to regulate and watch a fire in the dark. So I don't know how we deal with that.
This particular portion is just for burning yard waste. It's not recreational.
Okay, gotcha. Well, then I think it should just be during daylight hours. However you define that.
Does anyone want to bring a prohibition date or two, or none?
And that's just days that you're not allowed to?
Yes,
Like, okay.
or holidays.
Well, there's a lot of holidays that people might want to burn one.
Yeah.
Halloween. Thanksgiving. Maybe Christmas.
Like I said,
But isn't this just the yard waste? Are we still just talking about burning of yard waste?
this would be yard waste.
So, I mean, would people want to burn yard waste on Halloween more than any other day? I don't know. I mean,
If it's in the form of a bonfire, maybe.
Yeah, that too.
But we're not considering that.
Diane, you have a comment?
Yes, I just want you to know that the EAC did discuss the ceremonial burning of witches, and we do want to allow for that in the future, or anything other kind of bonfire recreational. So maybe there should be a separate permit for large ceremonial
I could see how
fires.
the burning of yard waste could get mixed in
No.
with, I know, with recreational burning. where
Recreational, yeah,
If someone has the property, they want to burn a bigger fire, they're probably going to start it with
with their,
leaves and,
and their twigs and their branches and so forth. Okay, but I just want you to know, we were thinking about everybody when we were looking at it.
I can't think of any dates where we would be prohibiting it unless when somebody wants to make a suggestion that makes sense.
Do we have any prohibitions currently?
Well, our permit says you're not allowed to burn during a week. There's no other restrictions.
Right.
As far
Is, is there a reason for that? I mean, I guess Peter is there. Peter, what do other municipalities do? I mean, what makes sense? Is it,
The reason why that was not during the week is we never had enough firemen to really
Right.
cover something like that if it really got out of control. That's why it was that way. It takes in the daytime, it takes too many different townships to come in to help you with a fire back then.
Not quite the
And I
case.
still say you do in the daytime because a lot of people are working. So you're limited to manpower if it gets out of control, which it has, and I've been on many of them that has gotten out of control. And then when you go out with one guy in one truck and one guy in another truck, and you gotta marry up the tanker to the pumper, it's a lot of work for two people. Until another neighboring township comes in and helps you.
So are you suggesting we maybe should keep this to the weekends?
I just brought it up, the
Okay.
reason why.
Okay.
That's, you know, so you can think about it.
So Marla, most other townships don't have daily restrictions, but I have seen ordinances that, you know, banned burning. And this is, you have to, we're not talking about recreational ceremony, cooking, burning, personal burnings. We're talking about the burning of refuse, the burning of yard waste. There's a lot of places that will, you know, say you can't do it on Sunday, or, you know, they'll put some limitations like that. And I've seen where holidays, they've said you can't burn. I think, you know, the thought being, if people want to be outside, if they want to have their windows open, and the neighbors, you know, burning yard waste, it, you know, can cause issues.
I could see the wisdom in that.
I've personally experienced that, yeah.
again, I'm jumping around, but I'm looking right at this. Sorry, I'm getting on a different topic now. But 50-4 prohibited burning. I'd recommend an edit to number 6. Household items, comma, including but not limited to. Because I think as written, people could construe it to only include those items mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a resident who burned a mattress too. I've seen a lot. Right down the road.
I heard somebody was trying to burn like a washing machine and dryer.
So we have,
So-
go ahead, Mark.
I was saying, so going back to the earlier point, is there some agreement that we should prohibit burning on weekends and holidays? Because again, people are home, they're in the backyard.
Specifically of the yard waste for all the reasons that have been cited.
Well, but before our permit allows it only on weekends, right? Right. Yeah,
Well-
so we have, kind of have it backwards here.
Well, the permit says the code never backed it up, so we just have to back up, you know, that was, so yes. Not burning on weekends, and then we've had people, like I said, kind of call with burning during the week. We don't get a ton of complaints about burning on the weekend, like as far as people's ability to burn on the weekends, but like Peter said, you don't have, a lot of places aren't limiting to certain days of the week. In Springfield, it used to be Sundays and Mondays, and we were always told, because that's when you hung out your laundry back in the good old days. And they just never changed it.
But I mean, I think people are gonna burn what they're gonna burn. They're probably gonna do it more apt to do it on the weekend, which is what I thought we were okay with, but. Does the permit exclude the weekends, or does it
No,
only?
the permit it allows on the week, it's on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm sorry, the permit allows what again? I'm sorry.
The permit states you can only burn on Saturdays and Sundays
Okay.
currently.
But
So-
not during the week. Okay.
Right, so why can't we keep that?
I think there was the addition of holidays.
Got it on the bottom, it should have it on the, or at least on the slips we have.
Can we ask the fire company their thoughts on this, given what Terry said a little while ago?
Yeah, yes, I mean, I know Tom said it's not as much of an issue as it used to be, but we can pull some other fire company members.
Chief, do you have anything to add to that?
I know, I know the fire companies, they have a lot of working relationships, but as Supervisor Sachs said, I know there's, during the week, it's one guy, one truck, and then somebody else.
They're
who
pulling
just
from
happened-
multiple places, yeah.
Who just happened to be off from work that day is able to respond. So, I mean, it does make sense that where you want to have your manpower. But I also, as he said too, I mean, it makes sense to call, to let them know that they're doing it. So if they're calling, we always get, we get the weekly permits of who's doing it. That way it's just, it's checks and balances, so everyone knows what's going on, especially if they're calling into the county radio. They're gonna let Chief Gammon know, or Fire Marshal Gammon. He can check his list out there, he's good, they're good.
We already have a system put in place for this, like
Yes.
on the weekends, and so I don't see any reason to fix something that isn't broken.
We get, every Friday afternoon, we get the list for the people that have come in. We get calls. Most of us check when we get a call, they're permitted, we're good.
And this is a health, safety, and welfare issue. This isn't just somebody wants to burn whenever they want to burn.
No, we check the list, and if it's an address or person who's not on the list, we go out.
Okay, thank you.
Because they'd have to have the permit Friday before the office closes. Right.
Yes.
Correct.
And that's how they
Yep.
know everybody goes.
Okay, thank you.
Even if they're not sure or whatever, we just, even, like I've had, because of the way the ordinance currently reads, like with campfire, whatever, I always suggest err on the side of caution, you're not paying for the permit, fill it out. That way, as Chief just stated, it's getting to the people it needs so that they're not,
And this is a feeless permit.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, many a time if it was windy, I didn't burn. I'd have to go, and I'd have to get another call for another permit on the weekend. So it's clear.
Because we will, and one thing in the draft, we limit those permit to 30 days, because you do have some residents who burn regularly, who will, so you're kind of keeping that contact, because one of the things now, especially is like with the burn bans and stuff, is you have some people seek that information out, some people maybe not so much, but if they have to come in again, we get another chance to kind of,
That would worry me of giving it 30 days, because I think if they wait a week or two, they'll forget about calling the county.
so would you rather make that like 2 weeks or a week at a time?
I'd have to think about that, but I'm just,
Yeah. Yep.
that's what I would say. They forget about calling the county, and then all of a sudden they start a fire, and then they don't know, and
Yeah.
nobody knows, because it's it's 2 weeks later, they're gonna burn.
I can also do some homework though too, because I know, what the county's policy is with that, because obviously, if that's not what their policy is, they're not gonna, I mean, they can't deny someone calling the non-emergency number.
Right.
But I can confirm with the county what their policy is with that. North Frederick obviously is not the only township that deals with people burning and stuff, so I'll get some clarification.
And then pass that on to Jason.
Yeah, so that would be in section 50-6 where the duration of the permit.
Okay.
Right now is at 30 days, so, okay.
All right, so is it safe to say at this point, you're gonna make these changes and tweak this, and then we'll look at it again next Tuesday?
It could be next Tuesday, or if you want me to kind of stop where we're at, because probably just the one thing we did want to do is what you can do during a burn ban.
Okay.
That's, that section.
You want to bring this up for another work session?
Well, what I mean is that we did add that section, because that's always, that's where our current code is confusing. And I remember I got asked
wanna
by
put a little more work into it.
reporter, and I looked at it, I went, oh, like it talks about exceptions. So, you know, we do have a section where you can, you know, gas, propane, charcoal grills and stoves with lids, you know, portable building grills fueled by propanes, or gas fire tables, patio heater. You have different ways now, but where that can be contained, where it's not open flame or open burning. But that would be one of the other main changes that we kind of added to this, was to specify, and Tom definitely agreed with spelling that out as far as what you can do during the burn ban, because we always get asked. And
I have another question. Under violations and penalties, currently the draft is reading that says any person who violates or permits a violation of this article shall, upon conviction in a summary proceeding brought before a district justice under blah, 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 be guilty of a summary offense and shall be punishable by a fine of not more than $1,000 plus costs of prosecution. In default of payment thereof, the defendant may be sentenced to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 30 days. Yeah? Imprisonment? Do we do that for any of our other penalties?
no,
I can't imagine that kind of
So
happening.
I
but-
have not looked over this yet. I got it the same time you did. That would be one of the things I'd recommend taking out. It actually, under the second-class township code, that is the language for this sort of enforcement action. And so, yeah, the second-class township code for certain types of ordinances requires that we enforce them through a non-traffic citation. And then that language allows for a fine, and in lieu of a fine, imprisonment. We don't have to do the imprisonment. I would take it out, because when we have that language, if there's any chance that a defendant could be imprisoned, then the right to counsel kicks in. And all of a sudden, we're dealing with, you know, getting a public defender for a guy who's was burning a fire out
or a
at the
woman.
time. Yes,
okay.
one or the other. So, yeah, I would recommend taking that out. I don't think it's necessary, and it adds an extra layer of complexity to any enforcement action.
Okay. Terry Bird, do you have anything to add to this? No? Okay.
we do have a hand, Gary Bonners has his hand raised then too, Noel.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Gary.
Hi, Gary Bonner, Former Road. The AC, the AC hasn't had an opportunity to look at this draft other than what's been shown on the screen, so I'd ask that we'd have an opportunity to look it over and provide some comments on it. And I also want to reiterate the comment that Diane made about leaf burning, that under the Pennsylvania recycling law, municipalities over 5,000 would be required to prohibit burning of leaves. And although that wouldn't kick in for us until the next census in 2030, I would recommend that we would, meet the spirit of the law and prohibit burning of leaves. The other open burning that we're talking about of yard waste would happen sporadically throughout the year, but in the fall, a lot of people are burning leaves at the same time, and that would, be more detrimental to air quality than burning other times of the year. That's all my comment.
Thank you, Gary.
And just another point too, because currently in our current code, you can burn trash, basically refuse, trash waste. That's another, I forgot, that's obviously a major key point to the change in the draft, is that's removed. You can't burn garbage.
Okay, do you have any more comments to make, Chuck? No, okay, so I,
One final thought, that's
okay,
it.
okay.
I think I heard what Diane and Gary both said, and I agree with not burning things that don't need to be burned. I think as we approach the next census, I won't be here, but we should try to, have a composting facility. If you're not going to let people burn, then you should have a composting facility. People can take the yard waste too, and that should be a longer range goal of the township in anticipation of outright banning of burning.
I agree. I've gotten feedback that there are some residents who wish we had something of that nature. Okay, so as we're going to leave this now, you're going to go do what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, my only
Sorry.
question is when do you guys want to see this again?
Chief Cass will do what he has to do, add to what you have. Peter will get a look at it, and then
Do we want to save for work
the
session?
next work session.
Work session, okay.
Okay, yep. Oh, yeah, and, yeah, that's a good idea. Get this in place before the fall.
Okay. Well, that was one of the reasons this was kind of first up, because I will say we've had the most activity with the ordinance changes that we've talked about that the board talked about last year, so.
Okay.
Peter, the public hearing to do something like this? Or,
I mean, that's what the ordinance says, but it's not a true hearing. We'd have to have a court reporter or anything.
okay, but I meant in terms of us saying we want to have it in place by the fall, we have to anticipate.
We would have to advertise
Right.
the meeting at which you would be considering to adopt the
So when we
ordinance.
set up our clock to have it done
Yes.
by a certain date, we need to factor
Yes.
that in. Got it.
No apologies, it's okay. Okay, next on our agenda for this evening is Township Parks Signs Quote Discussion.
Okay, as the board may recall, this discussion was tabled at the 327 work session to allow for the Park and Rec Board to discuss and provide a recommendation. It was also brought up at that Board of Supervisor meeting to get quote prices for double-sided signs, which is shown in the updated quote provided by State of Mind. Park and Rec Board did discuss this at their May 5th meeting and have provided their recommendation, which they recommended two-sided signs for Cuddy, Coble, Foy, and Colonial. One-sided signs for Cedar Hill, the Township Building, behind here at the Township Building, and Second Avenue, for a total cost of $3,495. Materials estimated $447. The Dingo rental at $1,755. And then I did throw in the permit costs because we would need to have our signs permitted. So a total cost without labor of $5,817. The public work, we did provide a labor cost to the Park and Rec Board of $4,330 for man hours. They also recommended going with the completely square. So do you want me to, Becky created a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if you want me to go through that or.
No, that's
Okay.
Does anyone else want to see it? Do you want to see?
This is Marla. I just think it would be helpful to see what the totally square signs look like. That's, because I remember last time we talked about the bump.
So the sign here would be that's the totally square sign. Or rectangle.
Yeah, rectangle.
Well, if you recall, this is what they had an angle on it. Correct. Whereas this is what was originally presented to the board. The sign itself had an angle to the top.
Did you say there was an updated quote on the signs?
Yeah, that has the double-sided signs. So whether we go square or.
No, I mean, you said we have a new quote from State of Mind?
Yeah,
Because the one I have here is dated January 28th of 2005 with the
that was,
custom contour cuts.
that was the two-sided. We've had this for a little while.
Wait. No, this is the park board's recommendations. Yeah, that's all right.
I don't know that they changed the date on the due date, but we have the signs the double-sided signs are $585 apiece. That's what's on the quote. You have single-sided and then you have the double-sided.
Oh, so they just didn't change the design or the language, they just changed the numbers.
Correct.
Okay,
I know, I realize the pictures don't help though.
that's fine, okay. And this is for 14 signs?
No.
Okay, so none of these numbers are right, the only thing that is right is the total?
It's the
The
individual.
price per unit and the
Yes.
bottom line?
Yes,
Okay. So 7197.40.
that's not the total.
Okay, but so we don't have a quote that actually shows us the actual final figures.
I need you guys to decide what you want for double-sided and the total cost for the signs would be $3,495 based on the recommendation by the Park and Rec Board.
Could you repeat that?
$3,495.
Does that include the installation?
Now,
And
the
so
total,
what's the total with the installation?
5,817 based on the Park Board's recommendation.
Okay, so I did a little math. We have 5817. That's the materials, a dingo rental permit, the zoning permit, and the signs themselves. When you add in the labor costs, that's $10,147. That does not include, how many signs? Did you say 10?
7.
7 signs, so it's $1,576 apiece for pressure-treated wood to put them in. All right, so let's put it this, we're pushing like over $10,000. And the amount of funds available is park development for $5,250 and park maintenance for $10,500.
Which I left that out of this updated.
Right now, I got it. And this was not originally budgeted for, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Could we constitute this an emergency?
No.
No. I think it's a nice idea, I think, but for me at this time, I mean, to do all of the signs, you'd be using the entire maintenance budget.
Well, that's park development, it's not the maintenance budget.
Well, the park development, or let's see, park maintenance is 10,500, so park development is 5,250.
Yeah.
When we only have 5,250, you're gonna be dipping into something else,
Correct.
right?
Well, I think if the park board views this as a priority and they're willing to spend money out of their budget on it. I mean, I don't know, are there other things that we need to spend money on for park board? I mean, I think the reason we threw it back to the park board was for them to recommend what they wanted to do.
I think I would like to have the chair actually speak to that. Katie, could you do that?
Just to answer that, Marla, what we did was we just looked at the options. We didn't discuss whether it was a priority or not, because we were just tasked to look at the options that were available to us. And that's what we did and came up with the suggestion for the board.
But you didn't, did you consider any of the costs?
We did not.
Or the budget?
Where it
Okay.
was coming from or not, because our understanding was that it was coming out of the other 2 line items for the park. So that wasn't something that we discussed.
So I guess I'm confused because this is about the 3rd time we've talked about it. And usually the way we work is we want a board or commission to make a recommendation to us about how and what they want to spend their budget money on. So, but I don't know, where do we go from here? Because if you're not interested in these signs, then why would we spend the money? I'm just confused.
Yeah, the park signs, this being added to the agenda for the park board was not something that we had taken into consideration at all for 2025. Like I said, it showed up on the Board of Supervisors agenda, and then it was pushed back to us to decide which signs we wanted to move forward with. If it was decided that we were going to move forward, I say the township was going to move forward with signs.
So your recommendation was simply the designs?
Exactly, and that was what we understood we were tasked with.
Okay, thank you.
And right now, I'm not aware of any other asset purchasing that the Park and Rec Board was looking at for this year. I guess, is that a,
Not currently,
yeah.
no.
Well, I guess I would like to know if the park board is recommending that the board move forward to approve spending money on these signs or not.
Yeah, we can definitely take that back. The question I would have is where exactly is that coming out of the budget? Is that coming out of Parks and Rec event budget, where I think we have about 6,000? Or is it coming out of the other two line items? And what was that money put into the budget for those two line items originally?
That's a good question, thank you.
It's not coming out of events because it's not an event. So I think it's coming out of the other two line items. But again, I mean, I think it's up to the park board to have a discussion. Is this important for you to have? And if so, to recommend to us to do it. And if it's not, what other things out there are more important that you would recommend? I
Okay,
mean,
oh, sorry.
that's where I'm coming from anyway.
So I guess, would you be able to share with us what those park maintenance and the park admin, what those $2 values were budgeted for?
Yeah, it's for park development, it's $5,250. And then for maintenance, it's $10,500.
I think you're looking for specifically what are the things that
Yeah,
brought that up to those
yes,
figures, right?
yes.
So the park development, that's been in the budget for essentially asset or purchasing for the parks.
So we could realistically use $5,250 to maybe buy some signs.
Correct. There was nothing specific for that, other than I think the board has put that in there so that if we needed assets for the park in some shape or form, that we would have this line item, which is why I looked at doing the signs this year, even though we didn't budget for it specifically. As far as the maintenance, there's certain maintenance that comes out of there, but it's not necessarily a given when it comes to that amount.
I mean, there's always been discussion, at least I've made the discussion of, them someday buying their own trailer so that Tommy doesn't have to feel like he needs to loan them a trailer. That would do double duty because they could store things in that trailer too when not, which they need the
Have you
space.
guys discussed that?
I know that it came up last year, but we haven't discussed that this year. So, but I'm more than happy to take it back to the park board. We have a meeting on Monday to see if it is actually something that we want to, that's a priority. So,
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And this is Marla again. I just wanted to make one other point, which if I'm incorrect, someone please correct me. But I think one of the reasons to do all the signs at once, even though it is more expensive, is because the rental of the equipment to install all the signs is a one-time expense, and that would be cheaper than having to do it twice.
I think my understanding was the dingo rental for $1,755 was a weekly rental, and they were also going to be using that to do the mulch at Foy Park.
Yes, but if they only do half the signs, they have to rent it again another time. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, then I think the park board will make that decision on how we move forward with that,
yeah,
the
and
finances.
I do have one other question. So both of those line items, the 10,000 and the 5,200, both of those are at the, not discretion, obviously, but the park board can recommend what those things are used for? Both of those line items, okay. So,
Yes.
okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, Is this in reference to what we just were speaking, in reference to? Those signs? Okay.
Dan North, Kratz Road. With respect to the signs, how many parks actually don't even, how many signs, if we were to keep the current park signs that exist, do we have parks that are in need of signs that have none? I know the one in the back here
I
doesn't have
think
a
there's
sign.
2 or 3. Second Street, the one over here.
I mean, they don't, most of the signs don't look that bad to me, so I don't know. It'd be nice if they were in a different direction, but instead of looking at wholesale, removing them, just put in ones that are missing. I mean, it's just a suggestion, cost effective.
Well, I'm sure Katie can take those comments
Yeah,
back to the park board meeting.
yeah. Okay, thanks. And
Thanks, Dan.
one last thing with respect to the signs. Would it be possible to get a better description of what type of the materials that are being used for the signs and how effective they are against graffiti and stuff like that, because that's getting to be more of a problem. And is there any hope to have an outreach to the township to see if they had any opinions on what the signs look like? So just food for thought.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, is there anybody on Zoom that might have a question, Jason, or a comment? Is anybody?
May I ask a question? Yeah, no.
So hold on, I'm reading Phil's question.
Oh,
Phil had a question. So Phil, to your question, State of Mind was going to add in whatever designations needed to be with the signs. That was going to be added to either on the post, or it was going to be taken care of. Because we understand that we have that requirement for anything that was bought with like county open space monies or any other way.
So all that language will be on the signs, appropriate signs. Okay, thank you.
So I guess this is a Peter question. We can't use our open space money for signs, right? Because these were all purchased outside of the open space program?
Actually, no, that used to be an issue, but they amended the law 8 years ago. So it's now available for all open spaces, not just ones purchased through that money. And I think, I'll look, but, my feeling is this would be an appropriate expense to come out of the 25%
I was
that we
going to say
can
it's
use.
25% of the
Yeah.
existing balance. Okay.
Yes.
I would be okay with that.
We have another question then, Noel, from Crystal.
Part of my question was actually answered, but my main question is, originally, was this the plan to have this be part of park board and not township board of supervisors decisions directly?
I'm sorry, Chris, could you clarify your question? I'm sorry.
Sure. So from what I understood, this was going to be a decision that was made by board of supervisors directly. Obviously, it was pushed back to park board. Is this something that park board is now kind of, I guess, inheriting from the board of supervisors? So are we taking on this project now?
No, typically with with this particular instance, it maybe should have probably come from the park board, but it was instituted as an administrative action on the board side, and then got to the board, but we sent it back to the park board where it should be to give recommendations. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. When it was decided to be given to the park board, what was I guess the reasoning for that? is it because of what account it was going to be taken out of? As far as, the expenses, the finance part of it?
No, it was really more, in all fairness to the park board, sort of separating out the expense pieces. It was really because we thought they knew best as to how many signs and where they should be placed and whether they should be single-sided or double-sided. We weren't asking them to weigh in as to whether it was too expensive or a legitimate expense. And so now that it's come full circle, we are asking them to go back and say, hey, is this really something, where does this fall in your list of priorities? So yeah, it's not a perfect process, but we didn't ask the park board to get involved in the expense side, so.
And if I can just add to that, I think although the board has the ultimate say, we like our boards and commissions to tell us what their priorities are, what their recommendations are. And then we usually agree. We don't always, but you have a budget, and if there's something else that is more important and you can convince us of that, then I think we'd like to hear about that.
Well put, thank you. Do we have any other comments or considerations on this item?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Crystal. So this will go back to the park board. I guess that'll bring us to our final item of this evening, which is the request for fire police for Perkiomen Township. We received a notice from Perkiomen Township for the Lower Frederick Fire Company Fire Police to help assist with the Perk Valley High School graduation on Friday, June 6th. This is a fairly easy one. I don't believe this needs any conversation. So the motion is to authorize the use of Lower Frederick Fire Company Fire Police at the request of Perkiomen Township for Perkiomen Valley High School graduation on Friday, June 6th. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Supervisor Byrd makes the motion. Supervisor Sachs makes the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the
Aye.
motion carries forward anonymously. Thank you. Okay. I believe this is a time for public comment. Is there any public comment? Is there anyone on Zoom, Jason?
No.
Okay, not seeing any public comment. Is there any supervisor comment? Okay, not hearing any supervisor comment. This meeting is adjourned.